So if you're looking to run Google Ads and you're just not totally sure what tools you should be using, where to start, I know there's a ton of different options. Today what we're going to do is we're going to go over what tools you actually need to run Google Ads. So if you're new here, my name is Chris. I cover all things Google Ads and local lead generation. So if you want to see more content like this, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. But without wasting any more time, let's just jump into those tools. So before we actually hop into the tools, I wanted to give you sort of like my purpose behind this video, why I'm actually putting it together, because the reason is not to just give you this ultimate list of every single tool in existence, because there's a ton of tools. You can use any of them that you want, and usually like a lot of them just aren't even needed. So the goal here is to get you the foundations of what you need to actually get you up and running, and essentially give you the essentials of what you need. And everything I'm going to cover today and everything that I'm going to recommend, I'm either currently using right now or I have used in the past. So I actually have the hands-on experience with those tools, so I can actually recommend them. So I figured the best way to break this up is into different levels of needs, because there's a ton of different tools. There's a handful that I use, and there's some that I deem as absolute necessities, but there's other things that are just more nice to have and you don't actually really need them. So the first level is the absolute necessities. The second level are the things that I highly recommend. And then the third level are just kind of the nice to haves. You don't need to have it, but really what I'd focus on is these first two categories up here. Obviously, the first one is the absolute necessities. So you definitely want to have that category, but the second one I also recommend as well. And then also one thing to keep in mind is that in the description below, I'm going to link over to this page on my website that has all of the tools that I recommend listed out, between landing page builders, building landing pages with WordPress, call tracking, all that kind of stuff. So if you want to see a list of all this stuff, I'm going to have it on a page over here, and then I'm going to jump between this page and the presentation as I go through all these tools. So starting off with the necessities, really the only main necessity that you have is you need to be able to build landing pages. If you don't have landing pages, or at least at the bare minimum a website, then you're going to have nowhere to send the traffic, and you're not going to be able to run Google Ads. I mean, technically you can run like a smart campaign or something like that, but the main necessity tool that you're going to need is landing pages. And there's a couple different ways that I've done this in the past. On the one hand, you can pay for a landing page builder. That's what I do right now. But what I did for years is I would just build my landing pages on WordPress. And I'm going to go through a handful of different options of how I used to do it and how I do it now and all that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, both of these options work, but your level of tech knowledge and your budget is going to dictate what option might be the best for you. Now, there's some pros and cons to each of these different approaches. When it comes to landing page builders themselves, typically they tend to be easy to use. They're drag and drop builders. I've used them for a while. They all kind of operate the same way. They're very user friendly, and pretty much anybody, you don't need to be, a tech wizard to figure it out. A lot of it's drag and drop, very easy to use. A lot of them usually have split testing features, so you can do A/B testing on your pages to figure out what version of pages work better, and a lot of page builders have those types of things built in. The only main downside of these page builders is they tend to be a lot more expensive. So, not $10, $20 a month. It could be $97 a month, $100, $200 a month. They tend to be more expensive, but that trade-off there is you get more features. They're easy to use, and typically the loading speed on the pages is really good. And then another way that I have a lot of experience with is doing WordPress websites. So WordPress is harder to set up initially, so you need a little bit of technical know-how, but it is significantly cheaper. And I'll walk through some of the pricing on these different options in just a minute. But typically with WordPress, if I recall correctly, on the hosting package that I'm on, between hosting and domains, for like 20 clients, it might have been like $30 a year per client on WordPress. So you're talking about something that might cost me $300 to $400 a year, whereas some landing page builders could be $300 a month. The trade-off there is definitely, if you have the technical ability, you can save a lot of money, but there are also downsides to WordPress. And when it comes to the drag and drop stuff, WordPress themes usually have drag and drop builders, so you don't really need to worry about that. The main downside that I have noticed with WordPress is you usually don't have A/B testing features that a lot of landing page builders have. But I have seen some WordPress themes that have begun to try to work that into their actual themes. And then there's one bonus method of building landing pages that transparently I have not really used for landing pages in the past, but there are website building platforms like Duda or Webflow, and these are essentially online website building platforms. and they're typically more geared towards building full websites, but you can easily use it as a way to build landing pages for your business. And the good thing about a lot of these platforms is they're usually pay per site. So the pricing is usually pretty flexible. It's usually kind of a mid-ground of a landing page builder and WordPress, where it's, let's say it's maybe $35 per month per site or something like that. So it's much, much more affordable. And technically you can build on things like Squarespace and Wix, but usually free options are going to be a little bit more limited on features. And most importantly right here is loading speeds. The reason why some of these page builders are faster is because they have better servers, better technology, usually, not always. Sometimes that's not quite the case, but typically if you're going to the free option, your loading speeds are going to be a lot slower. And one of the most important conversion factors on a landing page is good loading speed. If your page is taking too long to load, then you're just not going to convert as many people into leads as you would like. So at the end of the day, it's better to just invest the money into a page builder or WordPress or whatever works for you, instead of missing out on those added features and the speed of those page builders. So let's first off talk about some of the landing page builders, and then we'll talk about building websites with WordPress. And I'm just going to run through some of the ones that I have used and some of the ones that I recommend, and I'll walk through some of the pricing of each of them. So when it comes to landing page builders, these are a handful that I've used and I definitely recommend. Number one is High Level. I'm probably transparently going to be switching pretty much everything I do over to High Level at some point, because I can not only do the landing pages, but there are other things with software and automation and all this kind of stuff that I can do with High Level. And I find that what I get for what I pay is a lot more reasonable compared to some of the other landing page builders. So that's probably one thing that I'm going to be doing going forward. Currently, I'm built on Instapage, but moving forward, like I said, I'm probably going to switch things over to High Level, but right now, obviously on Instapage. Outside of all that, I have also used Downey. This is another great option because it does what you need without being too complicated. And I think the pricing is really reasonable for what you get. And then in a same kind of space as Downey is Lead Pages. Both of these two options, I feel like you get what you need. You don't need everything that all these other platforms give you. And I feel like their pricing is really, really reasonable for what you get. So if you look at the pricing here, High Level, the starter option, so if you're only doing this for like yourself and your business, is $97 a month. I think that's a perfectly fine starting point. If you need all the other stuff, it's $297 a month. So it's not super, super unreasonable, but just as a way to get up and running, $97 a month is pretty solid. You get the landing page builder and you can see everything else you get right here. You get their automation software and all this kind of stuff that comes with that $97 a month. So really solid deal there. In terms of Downey, this one actually does have a free option right here, but at the bare minimum, you got $29 per month. You can get 10 active landing pages, unlimited conversions. So this is a great option. And I made sure to have this on the pay monthly. $29 a month for essentially your one custom domain is a really, really good deal. The only thing is sometimes some of the cheaper page builders, I would check their page speed because sometimes they can be a little bit slower. Like I said before, what you pay for is kind of what you get in a way. So if you're going with the cheapest option, there's a decent chance that the page speed could be a little bit slower, but for $29 a month, it's really hard to beat that. Lead Pages, same kind of idea, $49 billed monthly, same kind of idea, 5 pages, you get 1 domain. So a lot of these you'll kind of notice are roughly the same. And a lot of them, they have free trials. High Level's got 14 days free. This one's got 14 days free. It seems like kind of the standard start a free trial. So that's Lead Pages. And then Instapage, they have changed their pricing a lot. When I went on board, it was like one option and then custom. So when I went on board, it was like $299 a month or custom, and that's all you got. But you have a lot of different options right here. So you have $24 a month, $99 a month, $199 a month. I am on not $199 a month. So I'm on like a different plan. So I can't really speak necessarily to what these are giving you. You can kind of compare everything down here. But this one right here, the $199 a month, has a lot of the features that I typically use. So you've got A/B testing, all that sort of stuff. I use that regularly. And I would definitely recommend that if you are looking to get into landing page optimization and all that sort of stuff. And then I mentioned Duda, just to kind of walk through that really quick. So this is on monthly right now. Their plans start at $25 a month for a standard site. So again, super affordable. You can just do it site by site and you can do pretty much whatever you want with it, build as many landing pages as you want. It's going to be a lot more flexible, but there's probably going to be a bit more of a learning curve compared to some of the landing page builders. Now, scrolling down the list a little bit more, I wanted to go over really quickly the things that I have used in the past to actually build landing pages with WordPress. Now, like I said before, WordPress is a lot more technically involved, but if you have some background technical abilities, it can be a very, very cheap and effective way to not only have one landing page, but have a bunch of landing pages for much less money. So there's really a few things you're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to register a domain. I register all my domains on Namecheap. And if you don't have a domain already and you're setting up a landing page, I would also recommend Namecheap. I've been using them for years. Very easy to use, solid deals on domain names. So you wanna register your domain. And then I've been using SiteGround for years as well. I find that they have not only reasonable prices, but their hosting is really, really fast. So if you're going with some of the bigger name hosting companies that I will not name in this video, they tend to have much slower hosting. Their support is just kind of all right. I've literally had zero issues with SiteGround. All of my pages that I've ever built on SiteGround have been really fast. And that's another thing to consider, not only with landing pages, but with your own website. Where you host those pages matters a ton. And if you're putting it on hosting that is just not fast enough, then your website's going to be slower. So I set up the sites on SiteGround. I set up a fresh WordPress install. And then what I do is I build everything on the Divi theme. So my website right now is built on the Divi theme. I've built tons of landing pages on the Divi theme. I've built a ton of websites on the Divi theme. It is, probably this and I guess probably Elementor are two of the really big ones. I'm sure there's other ones that I'm not thinking of right in this moment. But Divi has been really, really good. It has great drag and drop features. And all of the pricing on all this is pretty reasonable, and I'll walk you through that really quick. So when it comes to SiteGround, their one website plans are actually really, really reasonable. Typically how SiteGround, or just not even SiteGround, like any kind of hosting pricing works, is they'll give you some kind of like an upfront thing where it's like, hey, it's $3 a month for the first year. But really the number you should look at is this right here, because essentially after that first year, any hosting provider is going to go back to this main rate. They do this because they know people are going to get hosting and they're probably not going to cancel it for years. So they get people in on a good deal, but then it goes up to that. So technically this one website option is $18 a month. And I am on, I believe this one, the Grow Big one is $30 a month. And I just pay, typically also one thing to keep in mind with hosting is you're going to be paying annually for this. So it says per month, but upfront, you're just going to pay annually for the hosting. So I think I pay like $300 a year for my hosting. I can host, it says here, as many websites as I want. Obviously, you're going to run out of space at a certain point, but I have multiple sites on there, multiple landing pages, $30 a month. But if it's just you and it's one site or one set of landing pages or whatever, you can start at $18 a month and everything will be pretty much the same. Now, when it comes to Divi, there are a couple of options here. They have Divi Pro, which personally, I am not on all of this. There's so many different options. I'm just on the standard Divi option right here. And you can do Divi yearly, so you pay every single year. And right here, you can see it's billed $89 per year for the theme. But what I did originally, because I was like, I'm gonna be using this a lot, is you can literally just buy a lifetime license to the theme. And I just paid $249 once. And now I have a lifetime license to the theme. And what that means is every single new WordPress website that I set up, every single new landing page that I set up, whatever, if it's on a new domain, I can just have unlimited licenses to this theme. I paid the $249 once and I can use it forever, pretty much. So when it comes to the WordPress stuff, you need to first make sure you get your hosting set up. Then you're going to install a blank install of WordPress on the hosting. And then on top of the hosting, you need to get a WordPress theme. In this case, what I recommend is Divi, but there's tons of other ones you can go with. You can use Elementor if you want, but you're going to have both of those things combined to actually get your landing pages set up. So this is why when it comes to the, building landing pages on WordPress and all that sort of stuff, it's not the first thing I recommend, but if you do want to save money or you need to get a bunch of pages set up, it is a solid option. And also if you are doing websites for clients, this is another thing that's probably good to know, because it is just another skill set that you can have kind of in your back pocket. So one tier down from the absolute necessities is phone call tracking. Now, technically, you don't need to set this up. You can set up call conversion tracking in Google Ads for free, But personally, I like to run my phone calls through a software like CallRail, because at a bare minimum, it gives me a dashboard that I can log all of the calls, I can log all the recordings, and then also from a client perspective, I can give access to my clients to that dashboard. They can see all the calls, they can see all the recordings, and then I can send them notifications when calls come through. So not fully needed, but again, it's been super helpful. And on top of all of that, the call recording and everything, there's a ton more things you can do with CallRail that I'm not even going to touch on in this video because they have just so many different features. But it's been super helpful over the years to get that extra layer of data when I'm looking at leads, because I can look at a recording, see what keyword that recording came from. And if I'm seeing a bunch of crap calls from certain keywords, I can just pause that keyword and get rid of it. It also allows you to really monitor lead quality, and it gives you a much more in-depth look at what is going on with your leads and if that quality is actually good or not. And alternatively, outside of CallRail, you can actually set up phone call tracking and recording through High Level. So that's another reason why High Level is really solid. But keep in mind, if you set up phone call tracking, text messages, all that kind of stuff through High Level, you're going to have to pay for usage. So they're going to charge you per phone number and then per minute. But don't worry, like the minutes, paying for minutes, all that kind of stuff, it's maybe like 1 cent a minute or 3 cents a minute or something like that. So it's not ridiculous, but if you would prefer to just have everything in one place, you can actually go through High Level to do your phone call tracking as well. So going back to the list, I just have CallRail on here. This is the one that I've been using for, like 7 years at this point. I think it's been that long. But I've been using CallRail for years. I've never really had any issues with it. They have decently flexible pricing. And then, like I said before, if you want to just set it all up through High Level, you can do that as well. But when it comes to CallRail, I think their pricing is pretty reasonable. And really, it's one of those things where you're going to be paying based on usage. So if you're getting more leads, you're going to be paying more. But if you're getting more leads, you're probably making more money. Or if you're doing this for clients, then you're probably going to be getting more money because you have more clients. So it's the flexibility helps and everything kind of works out. It's a software that I highly, highly recommend. And like I said, it's not necessary. You don't absolutely need this software, but it helps give you another layer of data and just more tracking for your Google Ads campaigns. And this brings us on to the nice to have list. And I've got like 3 or 4 things on this list, and everything on here is not needed at all. You don't need it. Some of it, honestly, like I say here transparently, I'm probably going to move off of some of this stuff. But some of the nice to haves are things like click fraud protection software. Depending on your industry, it might be needed. It's not needed in every industry, but I've been using ClickCease for years. And what this software does is it essentially monitors the IP address of people that are clicking on your ads. And if they notice a certain IP address clicking on your ads too many times, they will block that IP address from seeing your ads. So theoretically, it helps you protect your campaign from fraudulent clicks. But over the years, and Google's had this for years, Google has a certain level of built-in click fraud protection. And honestly, I've been installing this click fraud software on every campaign because I'm essentially grandfathered into a long-term plan, and I still have an unlimited plan. So I just install it on every single campaign. I like the added level of protection, but again, it is not needed. And I've talked to other people who have honestly just sort of moved off of these softwares because they're not 100% needed and just sort of an additional expense. But if you would prefer to have that additional protection, ClickCease is a good option, but again, it's not totally needed. Then moving on down the list, there are so many campaign optimization tools you can use and automations and all this kind of stuff. The one that I've been using recently is called Keyword Me. And I'll switch over to the page in a second to just kind of show you what it looks like. But it's one of these tools that allows me to save a ton of time when it comes to optimization. So if you are somebody that manages multiple campaigns, or you just prefer to save time, it saves me a ton of time at the very least when it comes to adding negative keywords to my campaign, because it allows me to build keyword lists very, very fast. You literally just, for example, just highlight a keyword in the search terms report, and then it adds it to a keyword list. So Keyword Me has been really, really good. And those 2 things you can find over on the page here. The account optimization tool section here has Keyword Me, and then the click fraud software section has ClickCease. So if you are interested in either of those, you can find that on the page. And then the last couple of things here are, I don't have on the page or anything like that, but I figured I'd touch on them. Another nice to have thing is like Photoshop or some kind of photo editing software. Again, not totally needed, but I do a lot of other image type stuff. I think I pay maybe like 20 bucks a month for Photoshop. So Photoshop can be really good for optimizing images or editing images if you need to. But really the most important thing is to optimize your images for your landing pages and try to reduce their sizes, compress the images, all that kind of stuff. Because if the image sizes that you're putting on the landing page are too big, it's going to take longer for your pages to load. And that slower loading time is going to reduce your conversion rate, get you less leads, and you want to avoid that. Alternatively, you don't even need Photoshop. If you just Google online image resizer, online image file compressor, something like that, there's a ton of options out there where you can just drag and drop your image file in there, change the size, compress the image, all that sort of stuff, because you want to make your images on your landing page a smaller size so you can speed up their loading time. And then finally, one thing that's totally free, if you have a Google account, you probably already have one of these for free, is Google Drive or Google Sheets. So this is something that I use with every single campaign build, because if I'm ever organizing a keyword list or a negative keyword list or whatever, it makes it super, super easy for me to visualize the ad groups and to kind of like group the keywords into their ad groups before I then put it into a campaign. That is one last thing on this list, just wanted to throw it in. And to summarize everything here, there's really only one thing that you for sure need, and that is some way to build your landing pages. And then on top of that, like I said, you don't need this for sure, but I would definitely recommend phone call tracking and recording. And you could go down the rabbit hole with, lead scoring softwares and all that kind of stuff. But at the very least, having your landing pages, having your phone call tracking, those two things together are going to give you pretty much 80% of what you need when it comes to Google Ads, especially for local businesses. But then the nice to have stuff, you got click fraud software, campaign optimization tools, image editing software, Google Drive, all that kind of stuff. But like I said, at the end of the day, simpler is probably better, especially if you're just starting. Don't overwhelm yourself with all the tools. Just go with the things that are going to get you up and running, and that's going to be your best bet. And that's going to be landing pages and phone call tracking. So that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you got a little bit of value out of it. In the description below, I'm going to link over to this page. And on this page, like I said, there's going to be all the different tools from this video listed out. You can go over to the website, check them out if you want. And yeah, I hope you got a little value out of this. If you want to see more stuff like this, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. And if you are a business owner who is actually looking for somebody to build a campaign, manage it, kind of take care of everything for you, there's also going to be a link in the description to submit a consultation request. And I can check it out, see if I can help you out. In the meantime, if you like the video, would always appreciate a like, subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks.